Step out of the car. Now! Boone Rucker's voice was sharp and full of arrogance. He didn't wait for a reply. His son Knox already had his phone out, streaming live to 2 million followers. "Big bust on I-40, he said proudly. DEA boss caught moving product." Dr. Nia Harlow opened her door slowly, calm and steady. Her daughter Aisha was still asleep in the back seat. Boone leaned in, pretended to sniff the air. "You smell that?" he said. "That's fear." He grinned at Knox. "Check the trunk." Knox popped it open, slipped 2 gray packages beneath the spare tire, and winked at the camera. "Got her," he said. "Blue Lazarus, 800 pounds. She's done." Before we go further, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, hit subscribe, and give this story a like. Because what happens next will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice. Boone handcuffed Nia against the hood, pressing his knee into her back. "DEA administrator," he said, reading her badge. "Well, that's a new one. You people always think the rules don't apply to you." Nia said nothing. Her eyes were fixed on the reflection of his badge number in the cruiser window. "You're planting evidence," she said evenly. "And you just put it on camera." Boone spat tobacco on her shoe. "That right there? That's contempt of cop." She bent down, licked it off the leather, then looked him in the eye. "Chain of custody starts now." For the first time, Boone's confidence faltered. Knox's phone shook in his hand. Her watch buzzed. One encrypted pulse from Quantico. "Vault just bled 400 pounds. They're beta testing on you." She understood instantly. The cartel she'd been hunting had turned its weapon on her. Boone didn't notice the faint vibration or the tiny red light that blinked once before vanishing. He just kept smiling for the live stream. "Smile for the people, sweetheart," he said. "You just made my pension." In the back seat, Aisha opened her eyes. She saw her mother in cuffs, but didn't cry. Instead, she pressed the red bear on her lap. A signal left the car, silent and untraceable. Boone slammed the door shut. "Your kid's coming too," he said. "We'll see what Child Services thinks about Mommy the Mule." Knox zoomed in on Nia's face. "Chat's saying this is insane," he muttered. Boone laughed. "Chat loves a show." 10 minutes later, they were inside Izard County Detention. Nia's belongings were stripped, cataloged, sealed. A guard read aloud her titanium dog tag, engraved with the words, "Mommy comes back." Boone watched from the hallway. "You'll never see that kid again," he said. "Blue Lazarus bought my lake house. You're just the delivery." Nia looked up at the security camera. "You're being recorded," she said. Boone grinned. Not anymore. He pulled the plug from the wall. The monitor went dark. He leaned in, chewing. "You think Quantico's coming to save you? Out here, lady. We write the reports." Her 60-second phone call was her last card. When it came, she used it carefully. "Fire drill," she whispered. "Red Bear." The guard frowned. "Who you talking to?" She hung up before he could ask again. Her fingerprint authorization hit the network like a flare. The screen flashed crimson, Omega clearance. Boone's radio chirped. "Sheriff, we're getting federal chatter." But before he could answer, the ceiling shook. Outside, rotor blades thundered, floodlights split the fog, 3 Blackhawks, 2 Cybercom vans, and 1 white Winnebago with a satellite dish shaped like a cross. The gate burst open. Captain Jade Okonkwo stepped out in a Navy suit and red heels, calm as stone. "This facility is under federal command," she said. "Everyone freeze, including your pulse." Boone blinked, speechless. "Who the hell are you?" Jade held up her credentials. "Department of Justice Inspector. You just assaulted my administrator." Knox tried to hide his phone, but the screen was still live. 1.2 million people watched him sweat. Nia walked out barefoot, holding a young deputy's boots in her hands. 47 seconds, she said quietly. That's how long until your lake house becomes a crater. Boone's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. She smiled faintly. Watch the horizon. Knox's phone buzzed. The chat was exploding with comments. Check the map. There's a fire by Lake Norfolk. Boone turned toward the window. The night lit up orange. His face went pale. Jade stepped forward. You're under federal arrest for obstruction, racketeering, and unlawful seizure of evidence. Boone didn't move. Nia looked at Knox. Drop the phone. Junior. He froze. Dad? Nia's tone hardened. Now. He dropped it. The screen shattered against the floor, cutting the feed. The sound of rotor blades filled the silence. Boone's authority vanished with the signal. Nia stepped past him, calm as ever. You wanted a show, she said softly. Now you're in one. Boone reached for his gun, but Jade's team was faster. 2 laser dots landed on his chest. He raised his hand slowly. You got no idea what you're starting, he said. Nia turned once more before boarding the helicopter. I know exactly what I'm finishing. As the aircraft lifted, Aisha's red bear light blinked again on the dashboard of the Suburban, inside the detention block. Boone sank to his knees. The walls felt smaller now, the air colder. His phone was dead, his stream silent, his fame gone. For the first time, he realized what fear actually smelled like. That was how it began. 1 false stop, 2 dirty cops, and a mother who refused to break. The next 72 hours would rewrite the rules of power, loyalty, and justice across the entire I-40 corridor. But in that moment, all Boone could do was stare at the smoke rising over his burning lake house and whisper the same words she'd told him on the highway. Chain of custody. Nia sat in silence on the concrete bench, hands still cuffed, wrists bruised where Boone had tightened the metal. The cell smelled of bleach and rust. A faint carving on the wall read, Baby Jordan hung here March 11th, 2023. She traced the letters with her finger, memorizing every mark. That name again, Jordan Pike. It wasn't coincidence. Boone had mentioned it like a badge of pride. Now the walls whispered it back. The sound of boots echoed down the hallway. Boone appeared, chewing tobacco as always, his grin wide and lazy. You're quiet today, he said. Guess that military discipline finally kicked in. He leaned on the bars. You're wasting your breath. I already filed the report. You were driving 800 pounds of Lazarus. Case closed. Nia stared at him without blinking. And when they test the evidence? Boone smiled wider. We'll make sure it matches. He spat on the floor and turned away. A rookie deputy handed Nia a paper cup of water. His eyes darted nervously. Sorry, ma'am, he whispered. They said you were dangerous. Nia tilted her head. What's your name? Riley, he said. Riley Boone? She asked. No, ma'am, Riley Dent. First week. He hesitated, then leaned closer. That kid Jordan, he didn't hang himself. Sheriff Pike said it was suicide, but the cameras went dark that night. Nia nodded slightly. Thank you. Officer Dent, get out of here before someone sees you. He slipped away, glancing back once, guilt written all over his face. Her 60-second phone call came without warning. The guard handed her the receiver. You got 1 minute? The line clicked, and she heard Aisha's voice, soft but steady. Mommy? Nia swallowed hard. I'm okay. Baby, listen to me. Fire drill, Red Bear. Say it back. Red Bear, Aisha whispered. Good. Now remember, Mommy comes back. Mommy comes back, the girl repeated, her voice cracking just before the line cut off. Outside the cell, alarms started to hum. The lights flickered once, then turned crimson. A voice shouted from the command room. We got a clearance code, Omega level. Boone stormed in, furious. "Who authorized this?" The monitors flashed the DEA seal, followed by a voice through the speakers. "Captain Jade Okonkwo. Sheriff Boone Rucker, this is the Department of Justice. You're harboring a federal administrator. Stand down immediately." Boone ripped the radio from the wall. "You think you can scare me with deceit talk?" But his hands trembled slightly. The noise grew louder. Rotors overhead, engines rumbling. Boone ran to the window and froze. 3 Blackhawks hovered over the parking lot. 2 Cybercoms vans blocked the gate. The Winnebago with the cross-shaped dish rolled in behind them. "What the hell?" he muttered. The station lights exploded under the downdraft of helicopters. Jade stepped through the front doors in her midnight blue suit, heels striking the tile like clockwork. "Premises federal," she announced. "All local command suspended. Anyone who resists will face federal indictment." Boone charged toward her. "You don't waltz into my house and—" Her hand went up. "Your house," she interrupted. "This is U.S. property, and you just kidnapped a federal administrator." She turned to her agents. "Cell 3. The corridor filled with tactical boots. A sergeant reached for his weapon. Jade didn't flinch. "You draw. You drop," she said. He hesitated, then backed off. Boone spat again, but this time it didn't reach the floor. Jade's men had him by both arms before he could finish. When the cell opened, Nia stood barefoot, calm. "You took your time," she said. "We were waiting for confirmation," Jade replied. "You triggered Omega manually. That hasn't happened in 12 years. Nia nodded. "Last time was New Orleans. You remember who authorized it?" Jade's expression darkened. "Silas Creed." The name hung in the air like smoke. Creed, DEA legend, declared dead in Hurricane Katrina. The man who built the Lazarus Vault. The man who taught Nia her first rule of fieldwork: don't trust ghosts. Nia stepped out of the cell, the rookie's boots in her hands. "Where's Boone?" "In holding," Jade said. "His son's stream hit 1.2 million before it cut." "Good," Nia said. "The world saw enough," Boone shouted from the hallway. "You'll never touch Silas. He's a saint." Nia turned toward the sound. "No," she said quietly. "He's a banker." Jade handed her a phone. "Mateo's on the line. He's tracking Creed's financial ghost trail. They moved 800 pounds of product through a church account." Nia frowned. "Which church?" "Branson Megachurch, 10,000 seats, neon cross, owned by Reverend Silas Creed." Nia's eyes narrowed. "Then he's not dead. He's laundering souls." Boone's voice broke through again from behind the glass. "You'll never make it out of Arkansas." Nia smiled faintly. "You sure?" She pressed her thumb to Jade's tablet. A drone camera feed popped up, Boone's lake house glowing in infrared. "You kept that house off the books," she said. "But the crypto wallet didn't lie." Boone's jaw clenched. "You can't." "Already did," Nia said. "That was your retirement fund, right?" A single command left her tablet. The feed turned white. A second later, the explosion lit the horizon. The shockwave rolled across the pine hills like thunder. Boone screamed, slamming his fists against the glass. "You psycho!" he shouted. "You killed my son's future!" Nia looked at him calmly. "Your son destroyed his own." Knox was sitting in the corner of the holding room, pale, staring at his broken phone. "Dad," he muttered, "the chat. They're turning on us. They're saying we planted it." Boone banged on the door. "Don't listen to them. It's lies." But Knox wasn't listening. He was scrolling through his own live stream replay, watching himself slip the bricks into the trunk. His breath caught. His face went white. "Oh, God," he whispered. "It's all there." Jade leaned toward Nia. "What's your next move?" "We find Creed," Nia said, "and we burn the network down to its last badge." Mateo's voice came through the speaker again. "Fort Chaffee Vault's been hit. 1,200 pounds on record. Only 400 left. The rest vanished under religious exemptions. Laundered through faith-based fronts, Jade said. Classic creed. Boone's muffled voice echoed again. You can't erase this. Nia walked to the glass and stared him down. Watch me. She turned to Jade. Take him to isolation. Leave his son the broken phone. He needs to see what comes next. As the helicopters lifted them toward Fort Chaffee, Nia looked out over the burning horizon. The lake house fire glowed against the fog. It wasn't satisfaction she felt. It was calculation. Boone was just one badge. Creed controlled 100 more, a ghost army hiding behind pulpits, casinos, and police shields. Jade handed her a headset. Mateo's uploading the ledger now. You ready for this? Always, Nia said. And Jade, make sure Aisha's safe. She is, Jade replied. Quantico locked her signal inside Omega clearance. No one can trace it. Nia exhaled, a rare flicker of relief crossing her face. Then we move. Down below, Izard County shrank to a speck. Boone's voice was still ringing in her ears. You'll never touch Silas. She closed her eyes for a moment. In her mind, she saw Creed's face, the teacher who taught her to hunt shadows now leading one of his own. Watch me, she whispered again. The radio cracked. Mateo's last words before static. Fort Chaffee Vault confirms. Creed's ledger uses bingo QR codes. 7 suicides. Same printer. He's alive. Nia tightened her grip on the harness. The chopper banked east toward the hidden base. Her mission had changed. She wasn't just clearing her name anymore. She was going to expose the ghost who built the system. Boone was a symptom. Creed was the disease. When the lights of Fort Chaffee appeared in the distance, Nia's eyes hardened. Begin the purge, she said quietly. By the time the sun rises, they'll all know what Blue Lazarus really is. Fort Chaffee's vault door hissed shut behind them, and the ledger on Riley Song's tablet filled the briefing room with names and numbers like a confession. Nia read the header and felt the air go thin. 1,200 pounds recorded, 400 on site, 800 unaccounted for, shrink-wrapped into vacation Bible school boxes, labeled with prayerful slogans and barcodes that hid a trafficking ledger beneath a hymn. And the word creed stamped through every line, living like a footnote in the margins. Riley's voice was steady but razor-sharp as he projected the ledger onto the wall. Rev. S. Creed, deceased, 2005, printed in official fonts, and below it a trail of church accounts, bingo QR receipts, and transaction hashes that folded the sins of lawmen into the sermon of an altar, and every timestamp pointed to the same pattern, seizures rerouted through faith-based fronts, then siphoned into wallets that dissolved into shell charities and anonymous ledgers. Nia stood with her hands folded, feeling the old lesson she'd learned from Creed like a splinter under her skin. Don't trust ghosts. And now that ghost had written himself back into the world with other people's names, and the first name that hit her in the chest was Baby Jordan Pike. Mateo's line crackled in her ear, voice raw with the velocity of discovery. He faked Katrina. Creed went dark, changed names, and kept writing himself a clean ledger while laundering grief through pulpits. And the room watched as Riley pulled up surveillance stills, a rhinestone robe in a megachurch, a preacher's hand over a scanner, a keypad lighting up QR plates linked to a chain of casino accounts owned by Sheriff Loretta Pike. And every entry echoed with a dead kid's heartbeat, because someone had printed Baby Jordan's final Fitbit readout into the transaction metadata. 87 beats per minute stamped like a baptismal certificate. The sight of the ligature marks in the vault images made Nia's stomach roll. Too high for an accidental hang, too precise for a good death. The scars were clean, methodical, practiced. Someone engineered the fall. And when Mateo said, quiet and flat, he's the banker. It was not accusation so much as verdict. Jade opened the interactive map and it bloomed like a plague. 114 badges highlighted in cold blue, small departments, state troopers, courthouse carts, precincts that fed seizures to a carousel run by Boone Rucker cells and ghost deputies. And each badge had a nickname, a favorite pastor, a casino ledger. Nia thought of the names she'd seen on the seized manifest and the policemen who smiled to camera while they buried evidence. And she felt the summons of every mother whose child had been converted into a brand. Riley spoke again, fingers flicking through the ledger. 7 suicide notes printed with the same toner, same model printer, same font, bingo hall invoices with laundered deposits, QR plates that masked crypto flow, and a pattern emergence so elegant it made her sick. Faith as firewall, mercy as money laundering, prayers as cover. She thumbed her phone and called Aisha, because nothing in the world could be handled without first hearing the sound of her daughter's small, steady breath. And Aisha answered on the first ring with the bright cadence of a child who trusted an adult's promise. "Mommy?" And Nia said, short and fierce, "Hold steady. I'm coming for you." And Aisha's voice, 5 syllables and weightless, was the single compass point that kept Nia's decisions true, while Riley pushed through code and cold math. Mateo froze 840 million in crypto with a single keystroke, an order that traveled through nodes and exchanges like a net closing. And when the screen updated, the number turned from moving to static. $840 million immobilized. Accounts locked. Exit routes turned to glass. And for the first time, the ledger's invisible hands felt the bite of a real jaw. Boone watched the feeds from isolation and laughed at first. A wet sound that tried to roll like a drumbeat of triumph as he drummed his fingers against the plexiglass. "You can't touch Silas," he mouthed to himself. And into the hall his mouth shaped the name as if it were armor. But the laugh was thin, because he had not yet fitted his hands around the truth that the servos of criminal enterprise had been greased by his ego and by other people's silence. Nia moved through the vault, with the quiet efficiency of someone who had once measured wind patterns for a living. Her eyes found the VBS boxes first, and she pried one open with gloved fingers. Inside, beneath coloring sheets and cheap plastic prizes, a kilogram lay folded in sterile cellophane with a stamped token, Jordan 87, and beside it a printed receipt for a church donation that linked to a bingo app account that paid out to a casino front in Pike County. Riley angled his tablet and showed them the metadata. Every transaction carried a tiny echo of Jordan's last monitor readout, and someone had used that echo to authorize a holdback protocol called Zeno. A ghost protocol that siphoned seizures into an off-ledger that couldn't be audited unless you had the dead child's heartbeat as a key. In the corner, Riley muttered about Zeno's mechanics, how its blind signatures were nested under a contract signed by a dead man's name, how the protocol would kick and release shipments at scheduled spiritual events because Creed had built it with the cadence of sermons, and Nia felt something cold and righteous gather behind her ribs. She called Jade over and watched her peel back a layer of the 114 badge map, and Jade's face, usually an iron mask, went very small as she saw the names of people she'd worked with, men and women who had crossed lines and then washed their hands in chapel water. "He taught us how to make sacrifice look sacred," Jade said. Voice low, Mateo stepped forward with a different weapon. Proof of identity links between Reverend Creed and a set of shell identities traced back to Katrina relief efforts. A paper trail that had been faked so well it felt like treason in the face of truth. Someone in the room said the word banker again, and it settled like dust. Nia's jaw tightened. She thought of baby Jordan's mother and how many quiet nights she must have sat with a closed casket and a ledger in her lap. Boone's muffled voice came through the cell intercom. His bravado was thinning, so Nia did not answer. Instead, she punched the observation pane with the flat of her palm. Once. hard enough to make the glass tremble, and Boone flinched like an actor whose cue had been called too soon. And the sound of that single thud was a punctuation mark in a story that smelled of old money and new grief. Riley flashed a new data set across the wall. Pattern recognition had matched Creed's known sermon schedules with spikes in crypto movement and with shipment windows that always opened on Sundays between 6 and 9 a.m. "Branson," he said. And everyone in the room heard it as both a location and a summons. Nia put her hand against the cool metal of the vault and thought only of timing. How to move before the preacher's next rise. How to seize the sermon and make it confess. Then, as if the ledger itself had given permission, the comms lit up with images from the horizon, distant dots, then a bloom of orange as a lake house that serviced one of the network's key laundering nodes dissolved in fire. Boone's face split into a soundless scream on the feed. For 30 seconds, the room watched the small. Private Apocalypse and the ledger's teeth showed. Nia did not smile. She simply folded her hands and said, "Plain and absolute." "The overture is done." Memphis was a furnace of wires and water, the river whispering through pipes under the server farm, while Riley's song stood between towers of machines that hummed like beehives and breathed heat. He slid his gloves on and patched into the mainframe, eyes scanning a matrix of ghost traffic where faith and fentanyl mixed in the same current. "Zeno's alive," he said, fingers flying over the keyboard. "But someone hit a root key under a holdback protocol blind signed by your predecessor. Nia. Means only you can kill it." Nia leaned over his shoulder, watching a digital rosary of transactions ripple down the screen, each coin stamped with a verse number. Every movement of crypto traced to Silas Creed's megachurch empire, routed through fake charity accounts and back to casino wallets under Sheriff Loretta Pike's name. "He built an economy of forgiveness," Riley muttered. "Turn sin into coin, wash it in him, cash out in poker chips." Mateo, arm in a sling from the chopper drop, pulled up the last known location of Creed's signal, Branson, Missouri. Sunday service scheduled for dawn. Jade studied the crime board they'd built from the vault evidence. 114 names, all tied to traffic stops that ended in accidental overdoses or missing evidence. She said quietly, "This isn't a cartel. It's a church with badges." Nia's voice was calm but threaded with steel. "Then we treat it like a religion and excommunicate its priests." Riley froze an audio file. Baby Jordan Pike's final recording pulled from his Fitbit cloud. A choked breath, the creak of a belt, then his broken voice saying, "Mom, they kneelin' me." Before the sound cut off, the room fell silent. Nia lowered her head. "Structured murder," Jade said, almost to herself. "They turned executions into rituals." Mateo slammed his good fist against the table. "They recorded them for insurance claims." Nia's focus narrowed to Boone and Knox, whose arrest files now glowed on the display. "They ran a carousel," Riley explained. "Rotating departments every quarter, each unit seizing shipments, swapping tags, and reporting it as burned while reselling the real load. 10 years of seizures vanished like smoke." Jade zoomed in on transfer logs. Knox's TikTok handle embedded as watermark metadata in 5 different evidence tags. Proof that Ego had left the breadcrumb trail they needed. Mateo's phone chimed. "Incoming call. Loretta Pike," he said. Jade picked it up on speaker. The sheriff's voice oozed through the static, half defiant, half panicked. "Stay out of my chapels. Okonkwo, you bring your feds here and you'll start a holy war." Jade smiled coldly. 14 casinos say night-night. Loretta, maybe you'll pray better in handcuffs." Riley traced Zeno's heartbeat code to a server in the building's subfloor, cooled by direct Mississippi water. "He used the river as a conduit," he said. "Every transaction rides a temperature fluctuation. You shut it down wrong. You'll trigger a purge." Nia rolled up her sleeves. Then we don't shut it. We bleed it dry. She patched her clearance token into the main console. Voice steady. DEA Administrator Harlow. Override Xeno route. The system resisted, lines of blue code fighting her like tendons under glass. Riley mirrored her keystrokes. It's learning your rhythm. Match it beat for beat. Nia synced her breathing, heart rate matching the 87 BPM frozen from baby Jordan's Fitbit. The code blinked, then stuttered, as if listening to a ghost. He built the lock on a child's heartbeat, she whispered. Then we use it to end him. With a final keystroke, the ledger froze. The screen turned black. Funds immobilized, Riley confirmed. 840 million sealed. He's blind now. Outside, the water pipes hissed, pressure valves whining like the river itself was angry. Mateo checked his weapon. Next stop's Branson, he said. We grab the preacher before he preaches another sermon. Nia nodded but didn't move. Her phone had vibrated. A short Python script sent by Aisha, a demo of frozen wallets replicating Xeno's heartbeat loop. Proof that the 12-year-old had cracked the mirror code. Nia smiled faintly. Good girl, she murmured. Jade glanced over. She sent that? She's safer than any firewall you built, Nia said. Riley disconnected the main line. We've got 4 hours before Creed updates his network, 7:03 a.m., every Sunday. He'll upload new wallets from the pulpit. Nia holstered her sidearm, loaded 7 rounds, the last bullets from her Marine days. Then we finish this in God's house. The elevator doors opened to reveal a cold dawn over Memphis, steam rising from the river like the breath of something waking. They loaded into the convoy. Nia, Jade, Mateo, and 2 cyber agents. As they drove, Nia stared at the skyline. He preached salvation, she said, while mothers buried sons who never made it home. We end that sermon today. At the same time, deep inside the detention wing, Boone sat in a restraint chair, watching his son through the reinforced glass. Knox's hands shook as he replayed their live stream. The audio kept looping the moment Boone told him. Smile for the camera. Now the smile made him sick. Dad, he muttered. We killed a kid for a show. Boone pressed his forehead to the glass. Don't say that. We did what we had to. Knox's eyes filled. We did it for likes. His tablet pinged. News alerts. Rucker livestream sparks federal raid. DEA confirms false arrest. The world was turning, and not in their favor. Boone's knuckles went white. Back in the server farm, Riley left a dead man protocol. If the system detected Creed's update, it would push every seized ledger to federal archives and leak a mirrored copy to public servers. Insurance, he said. If we go down, truth goes up. Nia checked her watch. 3 hours to Branson. We'll need all of them. Jade handed her a data drive. Creed's next sermon theme, forgiveness is a laundromat. He's not even hiding it. Nia looked at the title and almost laughed. Not from humor, but exhaustion. Then we'll show the congregation what he's really washing. The final prep lasted only minutes. Mateo synced the dash cams to Quantico's live feed. Riley's team activated drones disguised as broadcast satellites. Jade loaded her compact rifle into a guitar case. The plan was simple. Infiltrate during worship. Hijack Creed's QR donation feed. Stream the evidence on every screen in the building. Let the truth preach itself, Jade said. Nia nodded, fastening her badge to her blazer pocket like armor. Every lie ends where it began, with a prayer, before they rolled out. Nia made one last call to Aisha. You ready for school? She asked. Already coding. Mom. Aisha replied. If you need me, say heartbeat steady. Nia smiled. Always. The line clicked off. For a moment, she let silence settle over her, a soldier's breath before battle. Mateo climbed into the driver's seat, the city reflected in his mirrored glasses. "You ever think you'd fight a war in a church?" he asked. "Every war's fought in one," Nia said quietly. "Just different gods." As they crossed the bridge out of Memphis, the rising sun burned the mist into gold. Behind them, the server farm cooled, water running slower through its veins. The ghost protocol Zeno was dead, but its architect was still preaching. Ahead lay Branson, 10,000 believers, and the man who'd built an empire on a dead boy's pulse. Nia's phone buzzed one last time. A message from Riley. "All crypto frozen. All feeds ready. Creed's sermon starts in 120 minutes. She looked out at the empty highway and murmured. 2 hours to judgment. Jade's voice from the back seat cut the quiet. Loretta Pike won't stay silent long. Nia didn't look back. Let her talk. The more noise she makes, the faster people hear. Mateo grinned faintly. You know the risk, right? Walking into his church is suicide. Nia adjusted the Glock on her thigh. Maybe, but resurrection starts somewhere. In the rearview mirror, the smoke from Boone's lake house still drifted faintly against the horizon. The memory of it burned through her chest. Not as vengeance, but as momentum. Everything ahead would be faster, louder, and public. She was done hiding in vaults and shadows. The network had taken its last breath of borrowed faith, and when the congregation rose to sing, they would bear witness not to Creed's gospel, but to the ghosts he'd tried to bury. Jordan, Boone, Knox, and the countless others whose names were about to echo louder than any sermon. The ledger was closing, and for the first time in years, Nia felt the rhythm of justice match the beat of a child's unbroken heart. Sunday morning in Branson felt like Judgment Day wrapped in sequins. 8,000 people filled the neon-lit sanctuary, clapping to a gospel band that sounded more like a Vegas act than a hymn. At the center stage stood Reverend Silas Creed in his rhinestone robe, microphone in one hand, tablet in the other. "Forgiveness," he shouted, voice echoing off the metal beams, "is a laundromat for the soul." The crowd erupted, waving their phones to scan the glowing QR plates on every pew. Each scan transferred crypto donations into the same shadow wallets Nia had frozen hours earlier. Creed didn't know it yet, but the pipeline had already turned to ice. Outside, Nia's convoy rolled to a stop behind the megachurch. She wore a white pantsuit, badge clipped to her belt, her eyes hard but calm. Aisha's small hand slipped into hers as they crossed the parking lot, mother and daughter walking into the lion's den without a tremor. Jade and Mateo flanked them, each armed and wired to Quantico's live feed. "Signal is clear," Riley said through the earpiece. "You've got every camera in the building. On your mark." Nia took a breath. "We let him start," she said. "Let him believe he's winning. Then we flip the world." Inside, Creed's sermon rose to a fever pitch. "You can sin, you can steal, you can stumble," he roared. "But as long as you tithe on time, the Lord will balance your ledger." The crowd laughed, blind to the truth playing out above their heads. Nia walked down the center aisle, her white suit glowing under the colored lights. The camera screens behind Creed shifted to her face. "Sister Harlow," Creed said smoothly, recognizing her from old DEA briefings. "Didn't expect to see you at sunrise service." He smiled for the congregation. "Come to confess, my child?" Nia raised a small USB drive between two fingers. "Actually, Reverend," she said, voice carrying across the hall, "I came to collect." The tech crew tried to cut her mic, but Riley's code had already hijacked the network. Every screen in the megachurch flickered, then shifted to a grainy video. Boone and Knox Rucker laughing as they planted the drugs under Nia's car. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came a second clip. Baby Jordan Pike's final 42 seconds. Knox's knee on his back. Boone's whisper, "Don't fight it, boy." The laughter in the sanctuary vanished. Only breathing and camera shutters remained. Someone shouted, "That's the sheriff's grandson!" Another voice cried, "You killed that boy!" Phones rose in unison, recording, streaming. Creed's face drained of color. "Cut the feed," he barked, but Jade's team sealed the control booth. Mateo stepped onto the stage, weapon drawn. "Stay right where you are! Preacher!" Creed turned to run toward the baptistry tunnel. Nia's voice boomed over the PA system. "Water's cold! Reverend, hell's hotter!" The back doors locked. SWAT agents dropped from the catwalks, surrounding the platform. Jade descended from the lighting rig on a zip line, landing beside Creed with her cuffs drawn. "Department of Justice," she said, her tone flat. "You're done preaching." Panic rippled through the congregation, then steadied into something else. Anger. Mothers wept. Fathers shouted. Phones live-streamed the collapse of their shepherd's empire. #BlueLazarus. Falls began trending within seconds. In the pews, Loretta Pike stood up, pearl revolver flashing under the lights. "You ain't taking my church!" she screamed, aiming at Nia. The shot never came. Nia stepped forward, twisted the gun from Loretta's hand, and flipped her to the ground in one clean motion. "Dish duty! Sheriff," she said, handing the revolver to an agent. "You can wash what's left of your soul in Waffle House grease." Creed was dragged back to the center of the stage, his robe torn, glittering under the glare of the cameras. "You think this matters?" he spat. "The app still updates at 7:03. Riley's voice came over comms. "Not anymore." On the big screen, a red countdown appeared. Xeno root access terminated at 0. The entire crypto network collapsed. The lights flickered as the servers in Memphis overheated and shut down. The sound that followed was like the sigh of a dying god. Fans whirring down, pipes hissing, systems fading into silence. 840 million frozen, Riley confirmed. The river's clean again. Creed sagged in his cuffs, whispering verses to no one. The crowd didn't cheer. They just watched, stunned, realizing they had been praying to a ghost. Nia looked out over them, her voice calm and measured. "You followed a man who sold redemption by the pound," she said. "Now you'll follow the truth." A woman in the front row began to clap slowly. Then another joined. Within moments, the entire church was standing, thousands of hands clapping not for spectacle, but for release. Outside, news helicopters circled as agents loaded boxes of evidence into trucks. Mateo leaned against a railing, blood seeping through his bandage but eyes bright. "Never thought I'd see a preacher in cuffs before breakfast," he said. Nia exhaled, watching Creed being pushed into an armored van. "That wasn't a preacher," she said. "That was a banker with a Bible." Jade checked her watch. "All 14 of Loretta's casinos are under federal control. Her accounts are zeroed. She'll be washing dishes before sundown." Nia nodded once. "Justice with interest." In the crowd, Aisha was helping agents collect phones from parishioners, smiling shyly when people thanked her. She looked up at her mother. "Mom, are we done?" Nia knelt to meet her eyes. "Almost. One more ghost to bury." Aisha nodded and held her hand. The two walked past the police tape together, cameras flashing as the crowd parted, as they reached the parking lot. Jade handed Nia her phone. "You're trending worldwide," she said. 2 million watching live, calling you the woman who baptized the truth. Nia smiled faintly. "Let them watch. It's their story now." Behind them, the giant neon cross on the church flickered, shorted, then went dark. Its light finally spent, hours later, as the convoy rolled away from Branson. The radio played a breaking news report: Reverend Silas Creed in federal custody. Charges include money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy to traffic controlled substances. Boone's mugshot appeared next, his smirk gone. Knox's booking photo followed, eyes hollow. Then Loretta Pike, in handcuffs, face blank, the announcer said. Federal officials confirmed the collapse of a multi-state criminal network known as Blue Lazarus. Nia turned the radio off. The hum of the engine filled the silence. She looked out the window at the sunrise bleeding across the hills. "He said forgiveness was a laundromat," she murmured. "Guess we just turned off the water." Mateo laughed softly and pulled the plug. Back in Quantico, Riley's monitors filled with data from across the country, new seizures, new arrests, people coming forward with evidence, cases reopened. The network had fallen. But the echo was just beginning. He leaned back, whispering to himself, one heartbeat at a time. In Branson, the church stood empty. The last congregants left their phones at the altar, screens frozen on the final frame of baby Jordan's face. On the screen, a small green pulse line still blinked, steady, defiant, alive. The sun had barely fallen behind the Ozark Ridge when the first rig rolled onto the bridge, headlights cutting through fog thick enough to feel 18 trucks in formation, each loaded with sealed crates, the last 400 pounds of Blue Lazarus on the road. Nia sat in the passenger seat of the lead Peterbilt, body armor beneath her jacket, Glock holstered low, eyes fixed on the convoy's tail lights stretching into the mist. Mateo drove one-handed, his other arm still strapped in a sling, a half-burned cigar resting in the dash tray. "River's moving fast tonight," he said, scanning the water below. "So are we," Nia replied, behind them. Jade crouched in the sleeper cabin with a .308 rifle across her knees. Headset tuned to Riley's feed. "Federal drones locked in." Riley's voice came through. "Heat signatures confirm 18 carriers, 1 decoy, and 4 unregistered escorts ahead. They're moving product to a jet ski drop southbound." Nia checked her watch. 6:47 p.m. "We end this before sunset." The fog closed in like smoke, swallowing the bridge's steel beams. Nia could smell diesel and the faint sting of ozone from the EMP drone circling overhead. "Ready on my mark," she said. The plan was tight. Spike the lead truck, force the convoy split, drive Creed's extraction toward the river, then cut off his escape before he could broadcast another coded sermon. She leaned into the mic. "Riley, deploy the spike strips." The road ahead flashed blue as 3 autonomous drones dropped metal lattices across the asphalt. Tires screamed, rubber exploded, sparks showered across the wet pavement. The convoy fractured instantly. "Targets scattered," Riley reported. 3 rigs eastbound, 5 north, remainder boxed on the bridge. Nia unbuckled. "Mateo, stop the cab." He slammed the brakes, trailer fishtailing behind them. The door burst open with a hiss of cold air as she stepped out, fog curling around her boots, across the span. Headlights flared, gunfire followed, sharp and echoing off the steel. "Return fire," Jade ordered, leaning out the window, her rifle coughing light. The first escort SUV spun out, flames blooming beneath its chassis. Nia ducked behind the truck's wheel well, checking the road for movement. Creed's convoy had always been scripture in motion, rhythmic, precise, like a hymn set to violence. Then she saw him. Reverend Silas Creed, shackled but somehow smiling, sitting upright in the back of a black-armored transport that had been repurposed as a rolling pulpit. The guards inside were his last loyalists, corrupt deputies in black armor, their badges taped over. Creed raised his hands as if blessing the chaos. "The river forgives all," he shouted through the cracked intercom. Nia stepped forward, voice like a commandment. "Not tonight." The EMP drone descended, silent and invisible until its pulse detonated. A flash that turned the night white. Every vehicle on the bridge went dark at once, engines dying, headlights dimming to ghosts. The world went quiet except for the wind and the water below. Then came the shouting, confusion, panic, fear. "Move!" Jade yelled. "They're rebooting manual control." Mateo drew his sidearm, firing at shadows between rigs. Nia climbed onto the nearest trailer, running across its roof toward the armored transport. Beneath her, crates rattled. Blue Lazarus bricks packed tight under false customs seals. Halfway across, gunfire sparked from the far end of the bridge. "Snipers!" Mateo called. "Riverbank!" "Take them," Nia ordered. Jade dropped to one knee, lining her sights. Her first shot punched through the fog. The second silenced the river's echo. Two figures collapsed on the southern pier. "Clear," Jade said. "Convoy center still active." Then the roar of engines returned. 3 jet skis cutting from the fog below, moving like black fins toward the river's bend. "That's our exit team," Riley said through comms. "They've got the payload." Nia didn't hesitate. She clipped a harness to the trailer's guardrail and jumped. The wind tore at her suit as her parachute deployed, a small tactical chute that barely slowed her descent. She hit the deck of the lead jet ski hard, pain flashing through her knees, but stayed upright. The rider turned, startled, pistol raised. She caught his wrist, twisted, and sent him into the river. Then she throttled the engine, turning the ski back toward the bridge. "One down," she said, up above. Mateo rammed the Peterbilt into the barricade of stalled trucks, creating a metal wall between them and Creed's transport. Sparks flew as steel met steel. "Bridge secure," he shouted. Nia accelerated toward the center column. Water spraying in arcs. Jade ziplined from the bridge, her silhouette cutting through fog and smoke, landing beside the black armored vehicle with a thud. Creed tried to crawl backward, shouting prayers that no longer had believers. Jade kicked the door open, leveled her rifle, and said, "The sermon's over." Creed's eyes were wide but unafraid. "You think you killed Faith?" he asked, smiling. "Sunday 7:03. There's always another update." Nia climbed up from the river, soaked but steady, Glock drawn. "Not if I kill the clock." She fired once. Not at Creed, but at his smartwatch, a titanium model wired to the last failsafe of the Xeno network. The bullet shattered it, sparks flying as the display died, somewhere far downstream. Servers hummed their last note and went dark. The river swallowed its reflection. "That was the last beat," she said, from behind. A gunshot cracked. Mateo stumbled, blood blooming on his shoulder. "Knox!" Jade shouted, spotting the younger rucker crawling from the wrecked SUV, eyes wild, pistol shaking. He was bleeding too, face streaked with soot and tears. "You killed my father!" he screamed. Nia stepped forward, lowering her weapon. "No. Knox, your father killed himself the day he pressed record." He fired once, the bullet grazing her arm. She didn't flinch. "Don't," Jade warned. But Nia lifted her gun, slow, deliberate. 4 rounds, center mass. Knox staggered backward, dropped his weapon, and fell to his knees. 47 seconds, Nia whispered. The same number he'd streamed the night he framed her. Then he fell forward, silent, on the far side of the bridge. Boone watched the scene unfold through a prison monitor in isolation, his face lit by the flickering feed. When he saw his son's body hit the ground, he covered his mouth and sobbed. No guards mocked him. There was nothing left to say. The sound carried through the hall, a man finally realizing that legacy can die louder than a gunshot. By the time federal reinforcements arrived, the air was heavy with diesel smoke and cordite. Every crate had been seized, every truck tagged. Riley's voice came through the static. "We've got full inventory. 1,200 pounds recovered. No leaks, no trails. It's over." Nia leaned against the guardrail, drenched and trembling, eyes locked on the water below. "Not over," she said softly. Accounted for. She holstered her weapon, looked at Creed being dragged to a helicopter, still muttering psalms under his breath. Tell him, she said to the agent escorting him, the river forgave no one tonight. As dawn broke, they stood at the center of the bridge, the wreckage stretching behind them like a battlefield after judgment. Mateo's arm was bandaged, Jade's rifle slung over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. He's going to trial? She asked. VR court, Nia said. He'll see every ghost he made. Jade nodded. Good. The fog began to lift, revealing the first streaks of sunlight cutting through the smoke. Nia looked east, toward Quantico. It's time, she said. The bridge went silent except for the wind. For the first time since the stop on I-40, she allowed herself a breath that didn't taste like war. 400 pounds recovered, one preacher broken, one son buried beside his own sin. She'd promised Aisha she'd come back, and she had. Justice, she realized, wasn't about victory. It was about survival. The ghosts had been given names, and that was enough for now, when they boarded the helicopter. Nia looked down one last time at the river, black and calm, flowing past the wreckage of the convoy. Somewhere beneath the surface, the shattered fragments of Creed's smartwatch drifted in the current, its dead circuitry still reflecting faint light. And as the chopper lifted toward the horizon, the water rippled once, steady, slow, as if a heartbeat had returned to rest. Quantico's VR courtroom was nothing like the old halls of justice. It was a circle of light floating in darkness, a space where every lie was replayed in front of a digital jury that could see straight through memory. The defendants sat in isolated pods, their projections translucent, flickering like ghosts. Boone Rucker appeared first, shackled in virtual chains, his uniform stripped of insignia, face hollowed by regret. Knox followed, younger, shaking, his projection frozen mid-breath. Loretta Pike, once the queen of 14 church casinos, stood in her Waffle House apron, hands still red from scrubbing pans. And finally, Reverend Silas Creed materialized in his rhinestone robe, eyes sunken, voice cracked from sermons that no one believed anymore. Around them, the jury of 12 wore headsets, avatars neutral and expressionless, but their verdicts carried the weight of a nation watching. Every major network streamed it live, across the country. Mothers, veterans, and officers tuned in to see what justice looked like in the age of ghosts. Nia stood in the center, the government's witness, the woman who'd turned a frame-up into a reckoning. The law didn't fail, she said softly. It just slept. We woke it up. The prosecutor played the footage, the traffic stop, the planted drugs, Boone's grin, Knox's laugh, Creed's coded sermons, Loretta's casino ledgers, each piece stacked like scripture rewritten in truth. Boone's eyes filled as his own voice echoed from the recording. Smile for the camera. The jury needed only 6 hours. Boone, 47 years, one for every second he streamed his crime. Knox, life without parole, and a permanent federal ban from all social media, a sentence the judge called a mercy against ego. Loretta Pike, stripped of pension, her properties seized, reassigned to community labor. Waffle House number 442, open 24 hours under federal supervision. Silas Creed, 7 life terms in a Supermax faith pod. Bible replaced with blank pages he was ordered to fill by hand, writing the names of the 7 dead children 1,000 times each day until his last breath. When he heard the sentence, he didn't shout or beg. He simply whispered, Sunday 7:03, like a man praying to a God that no longer answered. After the gavel fell, the lights dimmed and the VR feed shifted to a public memorial stream. Nia's new protocol launched that morning. Jordan 7, a blockchain chain of custody that tagged every gram of fentanyl in the country to baby Jordan Pike's last recorded heartbeat, 87 beats per minute. If a shipment moved illegally, the system would stop cold, the heartbeat silenced, and 40,000 federal monitors would wake at once. It was the first anti-laundering network built on grief, and it bore the name of a boy who never reached 20. Reporters called it poetic. Naya called it necessary. A year later, the world had changed. Boone's name was taught in ethics seminars, not for what he did, but for what it cost him. Loretta's Waffle House became a local legend, every shift filled with mothers she'd once exploited, every tip donated to the Jordan Fund. Knox's TikTok empire was gone, replaced by a silent account with no followers and a single post, "I'm sorry." And somewhere deep in Colorado's Supermax system, Creed copied the 7 names: Jordan Pike, Marcus Lattimore, Rosa Evans, Devin Kane, Lisa Brooks, Omar Tate, and Jonah Bell, 1,000 times a day on pages that would never see sunlight. His handwriting became the nation's penance. At sunrise on the anniversary of the verdict, Aisha stood on the Ozark Bridge, the same span that had once carried the convoy of death. She was 13 now, taller, steadier, her mother's fire in her eyes. She held 7 blue balloons, each tied with a micro SD chip containing the VR verdict and the complete trial archive. "Ready, Mommy?" she asked. Nia nodded beside her, the morning wind lifting her hair. "Let them go," she said. Aisha released the strings. The balloons rose slowly, blue against the pale gold sky, drifting south over the river. The chips inside carried truth like seeds, each one programmed to transmit the verdict once before burning itself clean, somewhere over Memphis. One balloon burst, flashing the words, "Justice," delivered across thousands of phones. Another reached Little Rock before fading into mist. The last drifted toward Branson, where the ruined megachurch still stood, its cross blackened and hollow, as they watched. Nia's voice broke the quiet. "Monsters wore badges," she said softly. "They wore code, and they wore silence. We answered with names, light, and a heartbeat that never stopped knocking." Aisha slipped her hand into hers. "Is it over now?" she asked. Nia smiled, eyes wet but proud. "No, baby, justice doesn't end. It echoes." Behind them, the rebuilt sign read Ozark Memorial Bridge, dedicated to baby Jordan Pike, 2004-2023. As they walked back toward the waiting car, the world seemed quieter, not because evil had vanished, but because truth had found its voice. Riley's network fed live data from every precinct in the country. Seizures flagged instantly. No more blind evidence transfers. Jade led the new Internal Oversight Division, Operation Jordan 7, while Mateo recovered and trained young agents to audit cyber ledger crimes. And Nia, now Director of National Narcotics Enforcement, kept her office bare except for one framed photo, Aisha, holding the red bear that started it all. The news that evening played the final update. Boone had died of a stroke in federal prison. His last recorded words to the chaplain were, "Tell her the chain held." Nia listened in silence, turned off the TV, and looked out at the horizon. Somewhere beyond that sky, 7 blue balloons were still flying, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe, not as a soldier, not as an agent, but as a mother who had kept her promise. Justice, she thought, wasn't a verdict or a victory. It was a fire, one that burned corruption, lit courage, and carried the heartbeat of a boy who refused to fade. The story of Blue Lazarus had ended, but the sound it left behind, the slow, steady rhythm of 87 beats per minute, would never stop. Thank you for watching this story. If you believe in justice, truth, and courage, please subscribe, leave a like, and share this video so more people can hear stories that matter. Every view, every comment, every share helps keep these voices alive.